Negotiation has always been about people, power, and persuasion. Now, a new player has entered the room. Negotiation has always been about people, power, and persuasion. Now, a new player has entered the room. AI. This isn't theory. AI is already reshaping how businesses prepare, how deals are structured, and how trust is built. The question is, are you ready to face it head-on? Today, we are joined by three extraordinary voices in negotiation. Our first speaker is Ms. Tin Anberg, founder and CEO of Creosum and a certified Smartnership partner. With a career spanning IBM and KMD, where she negotiated technology contracts worth up to $25 million US, Tina now advises and trains organizations across the globe, helping businesses unlock value, build trust, and achieve lasting success. Our next speaker is Miss Linda Swindling, a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, professor, and one of the top 10 global gurus in negotiation. A former attorney and mediator, she has authored more than 20 books, including the best-selling Ask Outrageously. Linda has empowered over 1,600 organizations worldwide to negotiate what truly matters and drive transformational results. And finally, Dr. Kjeld Jensen, ranked among the top 3 global gurus in negotiation. An internationally recognized strategist and creator of the Smartnership model, he has advised international companies, governments, and global organizations. The author of 27 books, including his latest, The Smart Negotiator, Dr. Jensen continues to redefine how negotiation creates trust, value, and long-term success. Please join me in welcoming Tina Anberg, Linda Swindling, and Dr. Kjeld Jensen.
Hello, everybody. Great seeing you guys. Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Tina, for joining me here today on a, I believe, very interesting topic for everybody, the future of negotiation. And let's jump right into it. Linda, are we going to be removed as negotiation experts and just replaced by AI? Is that the future that you see?
I don't know. I hope not. I think that AI is getting smarter and smarter. And yeah, it can be tempting to just use AI in negotiations, but you know, there are people behind these companies, behind AI.
Right. Linda, you are working with a lot of interesting clients, organizations, and students around the world. How do you see, how far are your clients in utilizing AI in negotiation, or are they using AI at all?
They're using it. I'll tell you where I'm seeing it is with my students. Mm-hmm. And I have to direct them as to what is a good use of it and what isn't. For instance, your personal experience this week about negotiating is not a good use of AI. That AI did not experience it. You experienced it. You write it up. Now you can use Grammarly or something to fix it, but that's not a good use of AI. Right. So I did not realize at that granular level of, you know, did you make that request? Did you do this? What was your personal experience that I'd have to be monitoring and saying, okay, AI can't think for you. So that's, you know, and yes, my clients are seeing it far more on producing what options are there, what could be possible, what could we be missing. That said, some of the strategic elements are missing there. Because it doesn't take into the fact that maybe this has been a business for years and years, or maybe they're trying to, maybe our group is trying to meld and develop something in a partnership that they wouldn't have had. So you can train AI, but you can't, I don't believe yet that it's able to replace humans.
Right, right. Tina, you and I, we have shared stage at several keynotes. And I remember we did one where we were asking the audience, I don't remember how big the audience was, but how many of you have actually been using AI professionally in negotiation? I'm not talking about finding a recipe for creating some dish or, you know, where should I go in Rome, but actually use it professionally in negotiation. And And, my experience when I did it with you, just like when I'm doing it every week around the world at a keynote, is that surprisingly few people are actually raising their hand saying, I'm using AI professionally. I remember I did one a couple of weeks ago. I think there was about 600 people in the room, 10 raised their hand. Is that something that you see, Tina, that it's out there and people know about it, talk about it, but they don't really use it? Is that your experience?
I think you're making a very important distinction here, Kel, because exactly as you are saying, when you are asking them, are you using it professionally?
Yep.
There is not many people raising their hands. It's about the same, like 10 people were raising their hands last week when I did a keynote. Of course, there's multiple people using it for coaching, recipes, or whatever. But professionally, and especially in terms of negotiations, it's still very new tool, I would say. How should I even use AI, and is it all right for the counterpart that I'm sitting together with? And for me, to be honest, I see it a bit more as, do you use a spreadsheet for doing your budgets? Do you use Word for formulating letters? Yes. So rightly, as you say, Linda, it's not replacing humans. We still need to be able to use this tool that it is, but it's an extremely powerful tool, especially in terms of negotiations.
I think negotiation, and please correct me, Tina and Linda, if you have a different view, but I always see negotiation has been about human dynamics. It's been about trust, and it's been about influence and to persuade somebody. And how do you see AI fitting into that equation without losing the human essence? And I have a second question in that connection as well, and that is, what is the biggest misconception that you hear when people talk about AI in negotiation? Linda, do you want to start with that one?
Me, I would say on the Howard, I'll start with the misconception. The misconception is it's totally replacing what we do.
Right.
And that it could possibly have the feelings. And on the reverse, the other question was, how do we really use it effectively? Is that what the question was?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. How do you see it fits in?
Yeah, what Tina was saying about, coming up with, you would use a spreadsheet, right? Or whatever that is. AI, you can train it to say, okay, I do not want to go for the jugular. I'm looking for a durable agreement. I want to build trust as we do this. So you can put some parameters in there and it can help you think. I still think it's a brainstorming tool, and it's a really good way to say, what am I missing? And also, can you give me a range of options that maybe I haven't considered?
Right. Tina?
Yeah, definitely. I think what you are mentioning here, Linda, giving a range, more perspective, supporting, at least I still see it more as a support as taking over, because you still need to feed it with some qualified, valuable input to, first of all, one, how do you want it to behave? Should it be collaborative? Should it be more zero-sum oriented? Do you want to be creative? Do you want to be open and transparent? So you also get the output that you are asking for. And right. I think that's important to keep in mind when we are embracing it in our negotiations.
As always, I want to remind our viewers, I think we have a couple of hundred on right now live, that you can ask questions. So just type it in, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube, type it in. And obviously, if you're watching the recorded version, you're always very welcome to email us any questions you may have. Linda, you help leaders avoid leaving value on the table, as we do when we help clients in their negotiation. Do you believe at this point that AI can actually help reducing that leakage, where the two parties don't really capitalize or utilize the value?
I think so. I think that it can definitely show you what you might be missing, but remember, it's it's an accumulation of all the different things that it's picking out, and certain things are shiny and attractive to AI. So my creative solution, AI might not have heard of. That's what I'm seeing, is sometimes it's missing some things that maybe we've done in the past, so I have to feed that in there. And I don't, I want to make sure my secrets are kind of, maintained. So when you're dealing that kind of especially with, really intellectual property and those types of things, you've got to make sure that what you're feeding it is really good, valuable information that it can use. And yes, it's good to hear what everybody else is doing. So it's kind of like you can get overwhelmed with all the different things people are doing.
Right.
And it can be overwhelming at times. So you want to, again, train it, talk to it, say, I need more boundaries around this so that what I'm producing will last in the future. I'm all about I think you all three of us are about the durable agreement. So the flashy, quick agreement is not what we're into.
Right, exactly. Just to take a step back, Linda, when we talk about the biggest misconception, one of the misconceptions that I sometimes hear, I don't know whether you guys agree with me or not, or you've experienced the same, is that people are saying, well, great, AI is here, so now I don't need to learn to negotiate because I can just leave it to AI. And I'm saying that's one of the biggest misunderstandings. It will be like you, Linda, and I, we jump into a Formula One car, having no driver's license, and then just speed off. We will crash in the corner. So I just want to warn everybody that AI in my world is an absolutely great tool, but we still need to know how to negotiate and how we want to negotiate. Would you agree with me on that, Tina and Linda?
Absolutely. I would very much agree, because it, like anything you are suggesting, when you don't know how to handle it, even though that you get a great tool, like how will you do it? When you were used to driving the horse wagon, then that was easy, but then getting the car, you need to learn it, right? That's the reason why we have a driver's license. Right. We should also have a negotiations license, right? We cannot just jump into the table and put a chatbot to do the negotiations for us. At least I believe personally that it might succeed some of the way, but as you are saying, Linda, we want to do durable contracts. I believe we still need humans to put the guidance on how do we manage that, and also critically evaluate, is it a good suggestion that it's coming up with? Because I believe all of us using different sorts of AI tools have received feedback that has either not been valid, or where it's coming up with a suggestion where you immediately think that I would never do in real life. Right. So we need to qualify the outcome that is getting out, even though that it is in many respects super efficient, helping, fast, but we need to validate it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Do you want to add something, Linda?
Well, I was thinking personal. We all negotiate in a different way, where it's individualized. And I always tell people, everything's a negotiation and nearly everything's negotiable. And what's not negotiable should be your values, your deep qualities. And your honesty. My last name is Swindling, and that translates the same in anybody's language, doesn't it? Somebody who might cheat. So I have to really be careful that I'm being honest all the time. And you can kind of use it as a crutch, but what are you going to do? Walk around with your phone and, say, oh, wait, before I respond to that little simple question, let me type it into AI and see what the proper response is. That's not going to work. That's not working in real time.
Right. Absolutely. I would agree with you completely. Tina, I know you're working with organizations to help them understand the importance of having a strategy and how to negotiate. And I also know that our mutual experience is that a lot of organizations globally don't have one. They basically leave up to their 60,000 employees that are negotiating to negotiate however they feel like that day. But how can, to try and make this very concrete and helpful for our viewers here today, what help can we get from AI? How could AI help an organization to integrate and establish a strategy?
That's a great question, Kel, because exactly as you are pointing out, whenever I'm asking any of our clients, the question or the look in their eyes is always the same whenever I ask that question. What is your negotiation strategy? They can come up with the growth strategy, the employee retention strategy, but negotiation strategy, it's like a new word happened to come out of my mouth. So AI can be extremely helpful because it has also a lot of knowledge about negotiations, different approaches in describing what kind of business are we, first of all, in which area are we operating, what is the core values of us as a company, and then also get sparing and advice from ChatGPT, for example, if that's the preferred AI tool, on what kind of different strategies can I use. One theme is choosing it overall as a company, like how do we want to potentially roll that out in the organization? But I also do suggest that for each of the single negotiations that we are having, to always pick a strategy before anyone is going into the negotiation table, knowing what is my strategy and having some ideas, maybe even simulated the negotiation with help from AI before entering the table can be extremely helpful.
Right. Yep, that's a good point. We got a question from Marcello. He's saying, if AI can analyze sentiment, detect speech pattern, and predict outcomes, what is the future of the art of persuasion, and relationship building in high-stakes, complex negotiation where trust and empathy are key elements? Linda, you probably got the answer to that one.
Oh, right. Great question. I think complex, it does allow us to say, okay, now then I want to talk about this party. Now I want to talk about what this party could do. Now, what would their baton be? I think you can have almost a conversation with AI about what am I missing here in this complex deal? It's not one on 2 or 3 of us. It's one on many parties. We could have many different things happen. And then you can actually do some future planning on what kind of renegotiation might we be missing. That's where a lot of my clients have been like, oh no, now we have to renegotiate a deal. So if AI can give us kind of some forward vision, right, on what can we expect might happen, is there going to be supply chain, something there, that would help us too. So I think it's almost a forecaster in some ways in the complex negotiation.
Okay. We got a question here from Kevin as well. What role does human mastery of negotiation play in finding areas where AI can add value or compensate for our weaknesses? I think that's a great question, Kevin, because as human beings, we do have a lot of weaknesses when we talk about negotiation. Tina, before we answer Kevin's question, if you should just bullet point some of the weaknesses you see in professional negotiators, just the top 3, what do you think that might be?
I would say ego, first of all, lack of being rational or being irrational. And thirdly, being too oriented towards yourself and your own interests.
Okay.
Nothing is wrong with any of these 3, but it's something that I see over and over again, despite that whenever I do trainings, I test for these things. I always ask on beforehand, do you consider yourself rational? Everybody raising their hands, yes, I'm super rational. Then we do a little test, then nobody is rational. And so do I with all of these things. So it's not that anything is wrong with it. It's just that that's how we are by nature. And that's often standing in the way of the best possible outcome for a negotiation. And here I see we can definitely be supported. So it's a great question.
So back to Kevin's questions. What you really say is that you believe AI can support us in some of these areas.
Definitely, I do believe so, because it's not taking care to the same extent as we are, right? People are, if we just take rationality, for example, most people are saying, yes, definitely, I'm very rational. And then they come up with examples why they are. And then we make a little test. Afterwards, they're saying, yeah, but I did as I did because I find it most fair. And when has fairness ever translated into being rational? And then I, start talking about stocks and what machines are doing and whatnot. But I do believe that we have some improvement we can do as human beings.
I will say though, and I've been playing around with AI since forever, and I do find though, Tina, that AI comes with some biases as well. It might be less biased than you, Linda, and I, but there are certainly biases in AI as well. Crab in, crab out. So whatever it's been learning, it's the same thing coming out. So that's really a question to you, Linda, when we talk ethics and moral and trust and what have you in negotiation. How can we help our viewers understand what biases AI may present? Just to give you an example, not directly related to negotiation, but for instance, if you ask, show me a picture of a surgeon. In most cases, it's a man coming out, right?
Right.
Yeah. So cases like that, Linda. How can we be aware of that?
Remember, one of the biases of AI is it wants you to continue to use it. so when you talk to it, think about what a great idea that is, Linda. That'd be perfect with your next corporate client, or this is, and so it compliments you and you're like, ooh, that feels so much better than what I'm getting, in the real world. I think, I'm sorry, but I still think that gut check, does that really feel, and Tina, you said fair, but does that, that's not a rational thing, but part of it is, does that really feel right or fair? Or is that, bodily, you can sometimes go, wait a second, I don't know what's wrong with this deal, but there's something wrong. It doesn't appear correct. The thing that I was laughing about was when you said ego. I found, do the two of you find that people either have extremely large egos or little ones, and you're just trying to say, you've got great ideas, go ask, go negotiate, what you just said is perfect, go do it. So it seems like there's nothing in between for a lot of people. It's just very high ego, or you're like, come on, you can do this. I encourage you. The rationality, the emotion, that all of that, what you said is perfect. And I guess what my ethics are going to be different than yours, and different than Tina's, Dr. Cal, and also different than AI's maybe. So you want to play that, culturally, our beliefs, our values, our ethics might be different. Also, AI might be showing us something, and we want to double check that, because ethics and values are all personal as well. So as we play it off, we want to say, okay, some people feel this way, but with all the cultural differences, all the global, and you can't just put one size fits all, because perhaps I was raised in Texas, which is true, but also perhaps my family has a German background, or a American Indian background, or a Native American background that also plays in. So you have to, can't just do culture, and you can't just do the way you were raised.
Right. I absolutely agree. There's a question here from Eduardo saying, how do we detect whether the other party is using AI in negotiation? This is actually a very interesting question, because this is a question I get a lot from our clients, saying, should we, one, reveal to the counterpart that we are using AI? And just like Eduardo is asking right now, how do we figure out if the counterpart is using AI? Tina, how do you want to respond to that? How do we do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because do we also disclose that I use PowerPoint or a spreadsheet? I think it's not really cheating using AI, right? I think there is a difference whether you are using it for your own, you are not putting anything confidential into it, or if you are having it listening into a conversation. At least for me, at this point in time, I might change my mind later, I don't know, but at this specific point of time, I think I would tell it if I had something listening in on the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Linda.
No, it's almost when it's too perfect. When the phrasing is just too perfect is when I know that they're really relying on cutting and pasting AI solutions.
Right. Exactly. My take on it is that, I think it's a great question, an important one. Is it unethical to use AI? First and foremost, I don't think so. I think it's a great answer you came up with, Tina. Would we reveal that we're using Excel spreadsheet? To me, anyway, and I would love to hear your take on this as well, guys. But to me, AI today is just a tool like PowerPoint and Excel, as you said. It's just something that we should use. I'm also a big fan, as you might know, of being transparent in negotiations. So I wouldn't mind, obviously, telling even before that negotiation begins that obviously we are prepping with the use of AI, and we would certainly recommend that the counterpart is doing that themselves as well, because we just get better prepared. If I could share very briefly, one of the studies that we used in my new book was basically the foundation of the book. We did a huge number of studies where we had people participate in a simulation. Some did traditional old school negotiation without AI, and some did where both parties were using AI. And I'm just summarizing very quickly. There was tremendous difference between the negotiation where both parties were using AI compared to the one where no one was using AI. The parties were way better prepared, and they were capturing way more value. And more interesting, and this was a surprise to me as a researcher, is that transparency, honesty, and sharing information went through the roof when both parties were using AI. And I can't really explain why, because a lot of people are saying when we integrate technology, trust goes down among human beings. And I would in general agree, but according to my studies, the opposite happened when we integrated AI. Suddenly people were more trusting, more sharing, more transparent, and captured more value. Linda, I was so lucky having you endorsing my book, so I know you read it already. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that, according to our studies, transparency increased when people are using AI?
Well, I think it's problem solving. When we take that problem solving method and we're being transparent, I have interests that are going to be different than yours, which is true, right? And remember the old times we used to say, now I've researched your case or I've researched your position and this is what I think it has. What am I missing? Well, the same thing with AI. You say, hey, we're going to run AI and see if we can find, different solutions. We suggest you do it too, so we can compare notes. Now it's not the problem or it's not the negotiation between the two of us. It's the let's solve the problem. So the transparency is beautiful. It's not, I'm hiding this little secret tool over here that gives me extra knowledge. This is what we're doing. Your group may come up with some different solutions. We're interested in that. And then here's the thing. You say, we really want this deal to work. We really want to work with you. We want this deal to work if it all can. And this is why we've used it, is to try to think of different options that might be appropriate. And we suggest that you guys do that too, because you have different resources than we do.
Right, exactly. It's actually very well connected with this answer here from George, where he's basically answering, saying there's no future for being very persuasive, but solving negotiation by both or all parties as an exercise, not a competition. I guess that's kind of what you just said as well, Linda, isn't it?
It is. It is for the complex, but boy, persuasion's still there, you all.
Right.
The one-on-one negotiations, the quick ones, the ones where your personality still plays into it. And it does too with AI. I mean, I will negotiate with somebody who I believe has my best interest at heart. Even if they have more data on somebody else's side, I still go for that personal feel, or I think that they know what they're talking about, or I can trust their expertise. So even it does equal the playing field somewhat, and your personality, I believe, will always be part of it as long as people are involved in speaking.
Just returning, Linda, to the topic of trust. I obviously believe trust is essential to be successful in negotiation. I believe you have somewhat the same take on that, Linda. Can we use AI to help us identify trust in a counterpart and help AI making us more trustworthy to the counterpart?
Sure. I'm always surprised when I ask how many people, I have some tests or some things like Tina does. And I'm always surprised when I say, would this deal stand up if you weren't there? Would somebody fight for it? Would they help you? And different groups, more people will stand up, a bigger percentage. So I think if you can identify, people have told me they don't trust me, or for some reason I don't have those kind of relationships, you could put in AI, what am I missing? Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm saying. Is it this industry? Is it my job? Is it my approach? So I think it could help you identify areas that you really could do some growth work in. And you can also say, why am I not trusting this other party? They're giving me all the information. They're doing all these things. And sometimes it says you should. And sometimes it could say, wait a second, we haven't seen this that we've seen in the past. Right. So I think it could help you analyze what's missing.
Right. I encountered, every day new tools in the world of AI pop up. And one of them, I'm not sponsored by them in any possible way, but there's a tool out there called Crystal with a C that is amazing. It reads your LinkedIn profile. So Tina, if I don't know you, have a meeting with you next week, I would use Crystal to go and read your LinkedIn profile. And then it would put you in the box on the DISC profiling. If you know the DISC profiling, the human trait behaviors, so dominance, influential, steadiness, what have you. And then just reading your LinkedIn profile, it will establish whether you're predominantly dominance, influential, steadiness, or whatever. And I tried this hundreds of times, and it's so accurate. I mean, it may not be perfect, But it's good enough for me to know when I'm meeting you next week, okay, Tina is a more dominant one. She will have this behavior. And I actually get a whole report stating this is how I should potentially communicate with you. I think this is remarkable because it can, back to what you said, Linda, it may not be that I don't trust you, but you may just communicate in a different way than me. And thereby we misunderstand each other or have misperception or whatever. So we can definitely that way around utilize technology as well to help us understand the counterpart better if we take that time. Tina, same question to you because I think this is really important. How do you see AI can help us increase trust in negotiations?
So I think back to when you asked me before, like 3 things that are standing in the way. The last thing that I said is that we are too often too focused on our own position, that we are lacking to listen to what the other counterpart is saying. And it also happens to me all the time, like professional and private life. I think it's fairly human, but that's where I think it can be helpful to get support from AI in explaining the situation, because it can help us to see other angles when we're saying they said X, Y, Z, but still you are focused on your own position, the next thing that you want to say, which means that you are hardly in a dialogue with each other. It's more like 2 monologues going towards each other, with each of your perspective, right, instead of talking. And I believe that is also creating distrust when someone doesn't feel that they are heard, listened to, understood. Trust is also decreasing. And so it's a bit another way to get there. But I believe that by better understanding, better listening, seeing more perspectives, AI can help us establish more trust in the conversation, because all of us like to feel understood.
Sure, right. Mohammed is asking a question here. What role skills in negotiation do you think AI can never play as good as humans, or can replace humans at all? Any thoughts on that, Linda and Tina?
Tina, do you want to?
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to say with never, I would not say, because we are evolving all the time. So I would not say that it can never do it. But for now, one of the things is the ability to read a sentiment. How is things perceived when you are saying it? Like the immediate answer that you see in people's eyes or body language when you are bringing a topic to the table. The interaction between the team on the other side. I think still there is some human touch, some human sense. And as you said, Linda, is it someone on our team that one is distrusting, that it's more about the people than the topic itself? And here I think people are still playing a significant role in negotiations.
We see all the time on movies, sci-fi movies, where the robot doesn't make any exceptions. Right. Yeah. And you see that in AI somewhat. Yes, it can think creatively, but it can't come up with that human emotion. Well, this person has, been doing business with us for years, or this person has this exception in this case, and next year they'll help us out. So I think the exceptions, the thinking outside the box, while it gives us options, it might not be as elegant when we finally get there. And also, part of negotiations is, it can be, not always, but it can be a little messy. And part of the best solutions come up with the emotions that occur and the messiness, because everything does not fall in a box. And if people are going to have to implement the situations or the solutions, we got to account for the people that are going to do it and what our human nature is. And so that humanity, as long as humans are going to be executing or doing what we're creating, we have to be keeping them in the loop there and making sure that their humanity is in there.
Right. I love that. I love that answer, Linda. There's a tool out there, I'm not going to mention any names, that claims they have created the autonomous negotiation tool, AI. And they have successfully been selling it into major corporations like Walmart and others, where procurement departments have embraced that tool to negotiate with their suppliers. And Walmart came out with a claim that they have reduced their cost by 1.5%. Now, I have seen this tool in action, and I have to say, to me, that was not a negotiation tool. It was basically transactional tool, creating a benefit for one at the expense of the counterpart. So it was basically just an automated negotiator that went out to the supplier and say, we have to find a way where you can reduce the price to us. Very serious sum orientated. So again, I'm also quite often invited in to look at what organizations claim is a technology AI negotiation tool, and I've not been blown away so far. Most of the cases, Linda, is actually just a contracting tool to handle a contract, to do redlining, to read the contract, and not really a negotiation tool. What I'm just getting at here is that I think there's some organizations out there that don't know what negotiation really is. And I don't want to sound arrogant, but they create a tool that they believe is handling negotiation. But they don't actually understand what negotiation might be. Is that a threat, Linda? That we basically develop technology that is not based in our knowledge on negotiation, but is more based on contracting. So it becomes a contracting management tool instead of a negotiation tool.
It's kind of like everything goes to purchasing. It's the same kind of thing, or the purchasing tools that they have. Mm-hmm. And yes, it can be an issue, but it's kind of like, that's technology. A lot of people think they have the newest and the greatest, and they put it to use, and it works in certain situations. It's not going to replace negotiation. Right. And yeah, I think from what you're describing, it sounds more like a cost-effective tool to try to find the value. And a lot of people are not appropriate for a Walmart. They don't do deals like that. So that might work real well in that situation where it's more of a product and trying to squeeze the price and develop it, and great. And we're looking at, I think what we're talking about are more complex deals that will involve long-term relationships. So if you're not trying to buy the whatever it is at the smallest price, made this way and shipped this, then the negotiation becomes differently. So again, it's just another tool, just like a lot of technology is another tool that can or cannot be the best thing for you.
Right. Kevin got a great question. He said, what should be considered the baseline negotiation skills that we would need to be established before AI can provide the best benefit? I think that's an important question, Tina.
Definitely. I think it's a very good question. I just thought, if it's one skill, I think there is multiple skills that, first of all, you need to have some understanding for the whole negotiation process, right? So whenever I'm doing programs on negotiations, I'm always taking them through 10 phases of a negotiation. And I think it's important to be aware of the phases there is from the very beginning, like even identifying now a negotiation is starting, to then also preparing, and back to your first point, called selecting a strategy. What kind of strategy am I entering with? Is this a complex deal, or is it, one of these Walmart examples where it's just about getting the lowest price, and if this vendor at some point will be bankrupt, then I just go to the next one. Doesn't matter. So there is very important in understanding how and where do I do business whenever you start these negotiations. I'm not sure it's answering, because I feel for it saying everything that I would say in 3 days now in 1 minute, but you need to have a solid base.
All right. Linda, do you want to add something?
Oh, Kevin, that just is so tough. I agree with Tina, because not only could you teach it all the different versions of what we all say, we all don't agree on everything. So the baseline, first you'd have to pick which strategies do you want to use and which times. And I think that's tough. I wanted to go back to something that you said about your crystal profiling too on LinkedIn. I think it's an excellent profile if the person has done their own profile. Now, if somebody else has done it for them, then you also have that computer reading the computer, right? Sure. So it kind of goes back to Kevin's question: who are you going against? What are working with? A lot of this is collaboration, and what is, what what are the different strategies you approve of as the owner of the company, or the owner of or being the negotiator?
Right. I just read the other day that Albania, the country Albania, had basically removed their public procurement department and replaced it by an AI bot. And one of the reasons was that they want to eliminate corruption, or the risk of corruption. And that actually reminded me of a research study we just finished. We're about to finish up the paper right now. And so this is the first time I'm talking about it anywhere in public. But we compared 2,000 negotiations, competitive bidding compared to negotiations. And then we looked at the outcome financially. Who got the best outcome, both on buy side and sell side? And let me just reveal the outcome, and not all the data, because then we would spend 3 days here as well. But negotiation outperformed competitive bidding every single time for both the buyer and the seller. It was superior to competitive bidding. So I'm just wondering, when a country like Albania is replacing human beings in their procurement department and putting in an AI bot because they want to run competitive bidding, are they basically fooling themselves and the supplier by thinking, now we're eliminating corruption, but leaving a lot of value on the table? I actually just today published a post on LinkedIn where I had AI, talking about AI, creating a picture of a completely deserted procurement department that says competitive bidding procurement department. Because if you are in competitive bidding and transactional negotiator, I think AI can replace you like that, because there's nothing to it. But if you are into long-term, as you talked about, Linda, long-term relationship, want to create value, want to create increased trust and all of that, well, then you still need human beings. So I'm just wondering, are procurement officers replacing themselves if they're believing in competitive bidding compared to those who believe in a more collaborative approach into negotiation? That was a very long introduction to a question here, Tina.
I believe definitely that negotiations will always outperform competitive bidding. And I was reading about this article with Albania, and there was one thing that popped to my mind, talking about AI can take over, saying they are now doing it because they want to avoid corruption. But will this actually avoid corruption, or will they find themselves in a place where corruption has already taken place? And now AI won't recognize that and will then select the best bid. So maybe it will, stand in for the procurement department, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily ready for it.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because one of my friends was hired for procurement, and it was based on an assessment that he had a low need to be liked. He didn't need, so he was not going to be in any way tricked or motivated. I think the problem is with negotiations nowadays, they're going to change in the future. There's something that always goes wrong, something that goes right, whatever. And you're going to have to be able to continue to improve upon them, or upgrade, or solve the problem. And so if it's just the competitive bidding solution, you don't have that ongoing ability to fix. You got to fix it, right? You have to solve the problem. So the other thing is kind of back to what you were saying, Kjeld. You're doing it, if you're just doing it in isolation and not having the back and forth, and not saying, hey, I used AI and you used AI and let's problem solve. If you're just doing it in your silo, you don't get the extra feedback, right? You don't get, well, that doesn't really solve our problem, or have you thought of this? So there's no back and forth.
I got a question here from Peter Jackson saying, should companies already be training their procurement and sales teams in AI or augmented negotiation, or is it still too early? What's your take on that, Tina?
The answer is yes, they should be training them on using AI in negotiations. Definitely, it's here. We will see even more of it, and I believe that those who are already skilled, and I assume by this question that they are already skilled negotiators, can really leverage negotiations. As you just shared some of the research study that you did on negotiations with AI versus negotiation human to human, that there is a lot of potential to be captured, because it can simply help us on these blind spots where we are weak as humans. So definitely, I think they should be trained, because it's not enough just to do your own prompting, right? And I think that goes for no matter how you are using any AI. You need to be also skilled in how do I work with it that I get the best possible outcome.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably true. Linda, are you already now training your students and clients in the use of AI in negotiation?
Yes, the students, I'm trying to keep it out sometimes because I want their original thought. I think what Tina said is perfect. I think everybody is using AI on some level, maybe not as much in negotiations. And again, the students, I want them to think for themselves. So there are certain, like we looked up a definition between position and interest yesterday, and in each of the classes I said, okay, look it up on AI. But then how did you really do it yourself? No, we don't need that. And I'll pick it up. They'll use the same exact answer. And you're like, okay, 7 of you did not talk to both your mother and your roommate about the same thing. So we've got to watch it because it can be very appealing.
Right. Absolutely. I saw a study just the other week. Sorry, I forgot where, probably MIT. They've done a very intensive study where they claim that, not surprisingly perhaps, that if people are just using AI for everything, they actually become dumber. Because their own creative development, their own sense of creating something and developing something was basically just gone because you're just AI giving you the answer to everything. So I think your take on it, Linda, is great. Having the students develop something on their own and then just use AI as a tool. I think that's a great way of doing it. I got another question here. What are some frameworks to ensure the responsible use of AI in negotiation or business decision making? It's a little bit connected to what we talked about earlier, the ethical use of AI. So are there any frameworks, Tina, that we can put in place?
To be honest, the first thing that popped to my mind with this question was the responsible user sitting behind the PC, right? So back to the point, shall we tell the counterpart that we are using it? What are we uploading to it? I think it's very much a tool where you can get answers, as you said, Linda, depending on how you are asking what you are normally feeding it with, it will come up with a certain answer. Like on the more funny side, I had discussion in my private life with my partner, and I thought, okay, I will ask ChatGPT what it thinks about our situation, and I think it came up with a perfect solution. And I declared before telling my new solution, I had a dialogue with ChatGPT, and this is what it came up with, and I think it's a great idea. His answer was, I think you would have gotten another response if you asked my ChatGPT. So it was not solving the situation, but it was interesting, right? So depending on how we are used to using it, and as you said, Kel, we are feeding it with information that I do really believe that the responsibility of using it is behind the PC.
Right. I think what you're saying there is very interesting, Tina, because AI in general is a people pleaser. They want to please you as a user. So one of the takeaways for our audience today is you have to prep your AI, whatever your favorite AI system might be. You have to prep it to be honest to you and not just pleasing you. Because if you're just saying something, who's the prettiest person on earth, it will come back and say, that's you, Tina. We'll always try and make you happy. So when you upload something and say, is this a good plan? It will say, it's a great plan. So you really have to ask it to be critical in what you're doing. Otherwise, its prime focus is just pleasing you. So I think that's an important takeaway as well, that we really ask it to be honest. Is that something you experienced as well, Linda, that the AI system?
Yeah, I love talking to it. And I'll say, tell me something I don't know about marketing me or something. And it's so nice. It's so much nicer to me than my husband that I'm married for forever. It'll tell me all sorts of nice things. Well, gosh, with that expertise of yours, you could do all these things. You're like, I could, but then I'll say, okay, well, tell me in a candid format, as if you were not my friend. Tell me, and all of a sudden, it's a very different idea. Right. So I'm wondering, back to what Dina was saying, is, if I was the one that programmed it, or I've been the one talking to it for a while, and then we say, okay, now this is going to be the company's approach. Is it the Linda Swindling approach, really.
Right.
So is that really going to be as candid? How do you boundary that? So I get all sorts. If I wanted to, I could say, pay me some compliments, little AI, and it would do.
Right. Yeah. And I guess in the future, Linda, we'll see people that prefer to communicate with the AI and not their spouse because it's just way nicer in general, right?
Yeah. But my spouse cooks, so I need to I need to talk to his AI a little bit.
Exactly.
More.
Yeah. We can't bring that yet. Anyway, we only have a few minutes left, and I want to give something away to our audience that is really useful, some tools and something they can actually take away. So I think if I should just summarize our great talk here today, I really loved it. I guess one of the things that everybody has to do right now is actually start using it and start getting some training in it. Because I guess it's not just jumping in and doing it. It's also about having a framework, knowing what to do, finding the right prompting, setting up the system correctly, and then get started. And back to Tina, what you and I talked about early on, it's really about start using it, as I just said, because there's so many people that are kind of talking about it, but not really doing it. And then I think there are too many organizations as well at this point who haven't really created an AI negotiation strategy. They don't have a negotiation strategy either, but they are definitely not creating an AI negotiation strategy. So I think there's some planning that needs to be done out there already now, thinking about how do we integrate AI into all of this. Linda, how could you, for instance, help your clients, your students, and everybody else start doing what they're supposed to do right now? What would be your recommendation to our audience right now? What's the first step that they can do in trying to pull it down? Yeah.
Yeah, find approaches that you like. So if you want to do your book, Keld, or one of ours, or find an approach that you agree with and on a deep level. And you say, this is the type of negotiations we want to have, and this is what we don't want to have. Right. And really define that before you start feeding it in. And then all of a sudden you'll start getting, and then you can say, and now be creative. Right. And you train it in a way that this is how you would do it personally. So I wanted to keep it ethical. I would keep it internal. I wouldn't, share it with the world. And I would say, what would best practices say about this? And you're going to get all sorts of levels of, I would never do this, start with no, and say, my goal is at the end to have this type of an experience with people and to have durable agreements and to be able to renegotiate if that's it. Right. And to show them that we're ethical or whatever your keys are, and give it some sort of resources it can use, because there are a lot of different approaches.
Right. Tina?
I very much agree. I think this was a great perspective, Linda. And back to the question about responsibility, it would also be possible when an organization have been sitting down defining how do we want to do so, I'm tempted to say manually made the negotiation strategy, to then train their own AI agent in how do they want to do in their company. Right. And that I would recommend to do that they have a corporate agent that is trained for that company and is also regarding all sorts of data that needs to be considered. Proper in that respect.
Right. Yeah, and you can, as you're doing your value proposition and as you're doing your values and your mission and your vision, you can say what we want to do when we're dealing with new hires or dealing in teams or dealing in dispute resolution. We want to follow our corporate values, or we want to follow our organizational values. You can train it to do that and show me how this is. And then you can choose a different path, but at least it's kind of getting that feel for what would fit in your organization, your desires.
Linda and Tina, one of the things I've been curious about for the last couple of years is gender roles in negotiation, men and women. And again, based on research have shown that, I'm generalizing, that women are better in negotiations than men when they're negotiating in somebody else's interest, and worse than men when they're negotiating in their own interest. And Tina and I, we actually experienced this firsthand as well. We were lecturing at an EMBA program together, and how was it, Tina? We were asking some women at the beginning, and what was it they told us?
What they said during lunch when I asked them, do you like to negotiate? And I said, well, not that much. And actually, I'm rarely leading the negotiation. I'm more sitting next to in the negotiation because I'm discomfortable when we are negotiating. And the interesting part was that on the last day of the MBA program, so we did some simulations, and it was clear that the group where we had a diversified negotiation team were outperforming by far the groups where it was only men. So we had majority of men in the training overall, but the diverse group was really outperforming. And when we asked them in the end, so we gave them feedback, they said, well, if this is how to negotiate, then I enjoy negotiating. So there is a matter of mindset and perspective to, are we going into a fight or are we going into collaborate?
Right.
Which is really defining.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for sharing that, Tina. Linda, is AI more relevant for women in negotiation right now? If we are right, what we're talking about right now, that perhaps more women than men dislike to negotiate, but are actually better negotiators than men?
I hear that a lot. So I changed the definition. I use that Oxford definition, which is it's a discussion aimed at reaching an agreement.
Right.
I think it's good for all of us. I do think you could say to it, is there a different way a man would negotiate, or traditional negotiation? I've been an attorney for decades. And so I didn't get that opportunity to not be afraid of negotiation. You had to go in and do it regardless. But you do see that 65% of us, though, and as a population, would prefer to negotiate on behalf of someone else. We did our own research, and that's kind of universally true. So how can you say, if it's for me, how can I help somebody else benefit if I raise my hand and ask, or if I negotiate? So that's kind of the workaround that I see. Who else could it benefit besides me? That's
great. Linda, if our audience want to know something more about you, where can they find you, and what's the best approach to do? Is that reading your book?
Yeah, but go to lindaswindling.com or askoutrageously.com, either way. All of my books, we've got resources, they're free, and you're welcome to do that. And Keld, I'll send you a link to the resources.
Perfect.
All of your people can use it. How well do I ask? Those types of things.
Sure. And Tina, you operate in the Nordics predominantly. How can people get in touch with you?
Yes, so I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, good place to find me, and I'm responding. So whenever you message me, I will respond. And else also on my website, creosum.dk, you will find more information also about trainings.
Sure. And both Linda and Tina are doing training in negotiations for corporates around the world. I just want to wrap up saying, Linda, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're really busy right now. Tina, thank you as well. Always lovely having the two of you in the room. And let me just wrap up by saying the reason I'm here and the reason we're doing it is because I just released 5 minutes ago my absolutely brand new book, The Smart Negotiator, that is focusing on AI in negotiations. And I was so fortunate to have Linda reading that book, and she actually liked it. So I was lucky. So if anybody want to study AI a bit more in negotiation, that's an opportunity to do that right there. So again, everybody, thank you so much for taking the time, spending it with us. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Tina. Take care, and do visit Linda and Tina's website and utilize what resources they're offering. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Keld.
Sometimes progress feels painfully slow, and waiting for results can be frustrating. Traditional negotiation can often feel like a standoff, leaving both sides drained. But with partnership negotiation, collaboration speeds things up. Transform slow results into a launchpad for success. Discover the power of partnership negotiation today.
Oh, good. I was going to say, are we staying?